Yeah, people didn't do us the favor of telling
The
us
courtesy.
the common courtesy of telling us about these things, so we're now telling you.
If we let him lead the room and set the temperature, we'll become more anxious, more flustered, more concerned, and even like be at odds with each other.
Our personality is to be like, everyone hold the baby.
Yeah.
Like, we want everyone to know him and love him. But we've kind of realized, like, you know, he can't advocate for himself in that way. I feed our baby, I don't know, 10 times a day.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll be on my phone while I'm feeding him. And there's been times where I look down at him and he's looking right at me.
So today we're going to be talking about 3 things we've learned so far in parenting that no one told us.
Yeah, people didn't do us the favor of telling
The
us
courtesy.
the common courtesy of telling us about these things. So we're now telling you.
We're paying it forward.
Yeah.
We're paying something forward that wasn't paid to us.
We're in debt, really. We're now in debt by telling you this information.
So the first thing is like, we didn't realize how when your baby's crying, they're not only feeling almost like uneasy, but they have the potential of making the whole room and like our connection feel uneasy.
Yeah.
And he starts crying.
Yeah.
The volume in the room automatically goes up. So
that
we have to like,
little cry has
Yeah.
a lot of power.
so we have to start like raising our voices, like talking to each other at a higher volume than we normally would. And then we're kind of like, especially if we're driving, we can't necessarily solve whatever his problem is in that moment.
Yeah, we just have to keep going on.
And so we find ourselves like, oh, if we let him lead the room and set the temperature, we'll become more anxious, more flustered, more concerned, and then even like be at odds with each other because we're like trying to sort it out, whatever. But we learned that in parenting, it's so important that we set the tone
Yeah.
and we don't let him.
Yeah, so when he's crying, we're not going to get caught up in it.
Yeah.
Instead, we're going to make an intentional choice to be like, it's okay,
Yeah.
we'll get through this.
Yeah.
Keep our tones low and our attitudes in check. And I think that's really important.
And if we're standing close to each other, keeping the tone low is helped by us standing closer to each other.
Yeah.
So, and we won't, sometimes we'll just be quiet.
Yeah.
And he'll be like losing his mind pretty much.
And maybe if we're standing close to each other, we could like get a hug in or something.
Yeah.
And that always makes things feel better.
It's true.
I'm a big physical touch person. So.
I love physical touch too, for the record. I'm a big physical touch person, but Mariah's like, if there's a chart, she's like
At the top of the
at the
chart.
top of the chart. Yeah, so I think that parents can sometimes feel the temptation to like meet the kids' anxiety with anxiety, or meet the kids like being flustered or worried,
Yeah.
or meet the kids being uneasy with more uneasiness.
Yeah.
But we made the decision early on that we set the temperature in the room.
Yeah.
We don't let him set the temperature in the room.
And I have heard that babies can really pick up on your stress and pick up on your anxiousness, and that will make them more uneasy. And so if you're just calm, cool, collected, then that helps the baby to want to calm down too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first thing is they set the tone.
Yeah. No.
So the first thing is you set the tone, they don't.
Yeah.
The second thing is it is your job to advocate for them because they can't advocate for themselves.
Yeah, so we've really been learning this with having a baby that's so young, especially in like cold and flu season. Our personality is to be like, everyone hold the baby.
Yeah.
Like, we want everyone to know him and love him. But we've kind of realized, like, you know, he can't advocate for himself in that way, and he doesn't really have an immune system. Like, he's still building all of that up. And so we've had to be the people to set certain boundaries in terms of like who holds him and when and how many people are holding him and like if they're kissing him and stuff like that. And so when someone is so vulnerable, like this baby's so vulnerable, you need to be the ones to step in and advocate for
And
them.
it's tough too because we're not like, our personalities don't lend to being like helicopter parents or overprotective or whatever.
Or even like weird about germs. We're not really like
yeah,
that.
yeah, we're not like germaphobes.
Yeah.
Like we wash our hands and we don't like share drinks really with other people. Like
we're not overly concerned about germs and stuff like that, I guess. It does sound weird to say that. It makes you sound kind of gross.
Like dirty?
You guys know what we mean.
Yeah, we love germs. We've got to figure out a way that doesn't sound dirty to convey that same idea.
We're hygienic, but we're not overly concerned about germs, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, they get what we mean.
Yeah.
But especially like for my personality, I kind of like, I'm okay and comfortable with confrontation and conflict and healthily resolving conflict. But generally, people would experience me as someone who brings levity to a room and joy to a room and peace to a room. And it's kind of like hospitable in how I act towards people. So it feels like counter how you would normally experience me with it now that I have a child, because sometimes I have to say like, oh, we're not going to do that right now. Or no, I'm just going to keep him for a bit.
Yeah.
Or, oh, don't put your finger in his mouth.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like that was an adjustment for me because I'm quicker to speak.
Yeah.
Than, because usually I would like have a really long, almost like tolerance for things that are done to me or whatever. But because it's a baby with an immune system that's still developing and doesn't have a voice yet, I think that I've learned that it is the parent's job, and it doesn't feel like a new concept, but it's more like something I didn't realize how confronting that would be, that it's our job to protect him.
A side of it I didn't realize too is like, I think before when I thought parents didn't want to like have people hold their babies, that it was like their problem that they were concerned about. But I'm realizing, like, for example, last night we went to an event, and on the way there, it was a long drive, and our baby cried like most of the time. And so when we arrived there, I held him for a long time because not because I was worried about sickness or germs or anything, but because I was trying to comfort him. I was like, oh my gosh, he just cried for like, I don't know, 45 minutes or something. And so I know he needs me as his mom to comfort him.
To regulate him.
Yeah, to regulate, to be like, even if he's sleeping for a while, to be like, no, I'm here. And so, when a couple people had asked to hold him at first, I was like, oh, I'm just going to hold him for a bit because he was really upset. And I just want to comfort him.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a new part of it, I realize, is that babies just need comfort. And they can't get that comfort necessarily from other people. They want to get it from their parents, right?
Yeah. And the third lesson we've learned so far is that as a parent, your presence is productive.
Yeah. And I think what that means is that there's going to be lots of times with your child that you'll feel like you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
But you're actually doing so much for them. An example for me is like, I feed our baby, I don't know, 10 times a day.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll be on my phone while I'm feeding him. And there's been times where I look down at him and he's looking right at me. And then I put my phone to the side and I just am like, wow, it seems like he really wants my attention. And we just like stare at each other for like, I don't know, a few minutes. And it feels maybe unproductive, or it feels like, oh, there's emails I could respond to or things I could do on my phone. But that's doing so much for him in that moment where he is feeding and he's connecting with me and realizing who I am and learning me.
No, that's good.
And so I think there's lots of times like that with kids that they just need you to be present.
Yeah, I remember there was a time where like I had him on his like bouncer thing, and every now and then I'd pop back to like bounce him some more, and then I was like cleaning the house or whatever. And I was like, and then there was a moment where I had a thought. I was like, oh, he doesn't need me to clean his home. He needs me to be his home. And this, like, I don't have these like poetic revelations all the time in parenting, but it was like this moment where I'm like, oh, he wants me to be like present with him. And especially in this moment where I'm like back at work from parental leave and stuff like that, I'm like, I want to soak up every moment as he's developing. And I've recently had a conversation with my friend who's a psychiatrist who specializes in like pediatric psychology, where he kind of was talking to me about brain development in the first 2 years of a kid's development and growth. And he said that like, when I have kids, I want to do my best to be at home as much as I can for the first 2 years, because it's so critical for the development of a kid's brain. And so even like greater than like the relational support that parents provide kids, we provide like psychological support as their little brains develop and they want to experience attachment and connection, and a lot of that is experienced with the parents. So
no, that's so good. I think having a child slows you down in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. It's
a
like a
beautiful
welcomed,
thing.
it's like a welcome slowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's so many times where he'll just kind of fall asleep on me. And yeah, I could put him down in his bassinet, but I just stay and let him nap on me because I feel like that's really good for him. And then also selfishly, I'm like, he might not do this in a few months. He might not fall asleep on me anymore. And so I'm just soaking it up.
And sometimes I put him down because I can be of two minds about this, because one side is like, oh yeah, attachment, connection, making sure he feels like he's just loved and cherished by his dad. And then the other side of me is like, we're raising a warrior. I want this kid to be tough.
That side doesn't come out that much.
That's the toxic side.
Yeah, that's his toxic
it's like
side.
10% of the time.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit less, but
anyways, we hope that information helps you, whether you have a child or thinking about having kids one day. It's quite the journey, but it's more positive than negative.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I was saying that, like, I said recently that, like, I feel like sometimes people overstate the cons of having a baby, like the less consistent sleep and the noise and the mess and stuff like that, but they understate the amazing parts, the fact that it's an adventure, the fact that you're getting to know and form a new person. It's just like, it feels like if the cons are here, the pros are like here in terms of like comparison. Yeah, so it's been beautiful. If you're a parent out there, or you're not a parent but you just have great parenting tips, make sure to comment those below. We want to hear all of them.
And if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. But with that, we'll see you guys next time.